fun, affordable bicycles, and I'm going to show you how to assemble your new Worland Rosetown. I've got my new Worland Rosetown here. I've got my bike stand, my cordless drill, and my impact driver. But we're not going to be using the bike stand or the power tools. I'm just going to use basic hand tools that you probably already have at home to show you how to do this easily in your garage. The tools you're going to need are a 10mm open-ended wrench, 2 through 6mm hex keys. I also have a 6mm T-handle hex key, which I like, but you can do without that. Box cutter, diagonal pliers, Phillips screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, and the only bike-specific tool that you need, which is a pedal wrench. It's got a 15mm open fitting, and you can use a 15mm wrench, but sometimes they're too wide, so I really recommend picking up a pedal wrench. If you get a cheap one, that's fine. That's the one bike tool you're going to need for this. So I'm going to start by opening up the box, and I'll show you 2 ways to do this, the hard way and the easy way. You might want to save the box so that you can pack the bike back up and ship it again if you need to, so I'll show you how to do that. The easy way, which is just to cut the box away from the bike so that you don't have to lift the bike out of the box. Since I'm reusing the box, I'm going to take all these staples out, and the way to do that is with that flathead screwdriver. You just get it underneath the staple and they come right out like that. Pedal wrench isn't just for putting pedals on. We're going to get the box open with it. And I'm going to slide it under this flap here. Any glue that's holding that flap down, the pedal wrench will just go right through. The way to pull a bike out of a box is to grab the rear wheel. Rotate the bike up and pull the box down. That way you don't have to take the full weight all at once. And then once I have the wheel out and the bike's just sitting on the front there, then it comes right out easy. That was kind of hard. Let me show you the easy way to do that. Alright, here's how you take a bike out of the box the easy way, if you don't care about saving the box. We're just going to ride this bike. We're not going to ship it anywhere again. Didn't have to lift it up. It's already right here where I want it to be. Got my parts box. There's going to be pedals and some parts and a charger in there. Worland really likes to use a lot of zip ties, and it's possible to accidentally scratch the bike when you're cutting the zip ties with the diagonal pliers. I just try to be careful not to do that, but if you want to make sure not to scratch your new bike, one thing you can do is use toenail clippers instead of diagonal pliers to cut the zip ties. The Rosetown's got a 48-volt 10.4 amp hour battery, and that comes installed on the frame. There's a little switch over here on the left side of the bike on the battery, and you need to turn that switch on to be able to use the bike. Once that's on, you can use the power button that's on the display. Quill stem with a wedge on it. I'm just going to set it in to get it out of the way for a moment. I'm going to need to open up my parts box. Pedals, fender clamps, quick release skewer, headlight, frustum shaped cosmetic piece, and charger. All Worland bikes use the same 54-volt charger with a 3.5mm plug. It's pretty standard. It doesn't have to be a Worland charger. You can get any brand of charger with those specs and it'll work. We're going to put our frustum on. It just has a little O-ring in there that tensions it, and that covers up the headset mechanism. The headlight and the front fender go on the same bolt on the fork arch. Now, if it's always nice and sunny in your area and you don't ride in rainy weather, you might choose to leave the fender off. They are kind of finicky to install properly, but this bike's designed with Portland in mind, so we have fenders for it. We're going to go ahead and put the fender and the light on at the same time. It's a little easier if you plug the wires into the light first. We have a plus and a minus there on the back of the light. The wire with the white stripe on it is your minus. Okay, those are on, and then we're going to get rubber protectors on them. Probably a good time to turn the bike on and see if that works. It does. Now we've got our M6 bolt, 5mm hex wrench. We're going to go ahead and put the fender on. Remove the protective packing pieces. We're going to install the quick release skewer. You can install the quick release skewer with the lever on the left or the right. A lot of bike mechanics will tell you it's correct to install it over here on the left side, but a lot of riders prefer it away from the disc brake over here on the right. It doesn't really matter, so you can do it either way. These conical springs are going to point in towards the wheel. So we're going to get it on like that, with the first conical spring pointing in, the other one over here, and then I'm going to go ahead and slightly thread that knob on. Now I'm going to hold the wheel between my legs, grab both of the fork legs of the bike, and guide that on. Looks like the fender's hanging us up, so I'm going to have to loosen that and move it. Alright, we're all the way in the dropouts, so now we're going to tighten the wheel. What I'm doing is I'm going to go ahead and tighten the knob over here while testing the lever. You never want to turn that lever. So I'm going to tighten the knob until I start getting resistance to closing the lever right when it's about straight out like that. Then I'm going to take my hand and close the lever the rest of the way. The wheel is on properly. Now we can go ahead and adjust our fender and our brake. I'm going to make my life a little easier now that I have both wheels on. I put the kickstand down. So I've got the fender adjusted so it's not rubbing, but the brake's rubbing a little bit. I'm going to get the handlebar positioned and then I'll come back and show you how to adjust the brake. The handlebar has a maximum height line right there. So that's the maximum height you can set this stem at. We're going to set it right to a medium height so that we've got somewhere to go if we want to raise it later. I'm going to line that up with the wheel and go ahead and tighten that quill bolt. And then I'm going to use the long end of the wrench and make that good and tight. Now I'm going to position the handlebar where I want it. We've got two clamp bolts here we're going to loosen up. I usually like the handlebar so that it's about level. And I'm going to evenly tighten those clamp bolts such that the gap right here is the same both below and above the handlebar. And those need to be tight, but not quite as tight as the quill bolt. I can position my display. That one takes a 3mm Allen wrench. I can make sure that's tight. Well, our adjusting bolt's not quite tight, so there's one more adjustment on this stem, and that allows you to adjust the angle here, so you can get it a little higher or lower by adjusting that angle. But those bolts need to be tightened. There's a bolt underneath it here that wedges it into place. I'm going to adjust my brake now. That's rubbing a little bit. And how we're going to adjust that is there's two bolts that hold the brake caliper onto the fork. I'm going to loosen those bolts. And I'm going to hold the brake lever. I'm just going to snug the bolts while holding the brake lever. And a little more tweaking. I can look down here and see it's over to the left a little bit. Well, I think we got the brake. A little bit of fender rub that we're going to have to address. But since I've got that brake adjusted where I want it, and the bolts are just snug, now I can come back and fully tighten the bolts. In my experience on these bikes, the rear brake and the shifting is usually adjusted right out of the box. If we want to check, might have to squeeze that rear brake a couple times to get it to pump up. And then we can spin it. Yeah, it sounds like we've got a little bit of rub. So we'll just do the same thing we did on the front. Tighten up my seat now. This quick release on the seat is kind of the same idea as the quick release on the wheel. You've got some cam action that happens when you close that lever. So it doesn't take a lot of force. You just close the lever and you've got your seat tight. Now all we have to do is put the pedals on and pump up the tires. Be aware with the pedals, there's a left and the right. The left is usually going to have these little lines on it, but you can also look at the threads and see which direction they go. This one goes up to the left and this one goes up to the right. So right pedal's going to go on first, and it's going to be a standard righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. You can remember that both pedals just tighten towards the front of the bike. Left pedal goes on next, lefty-tighty with this one. But we can remember that just by tightening towards the front of the bike on both sides. 15mm pedal wrench. And that's all it takes. That feels like about 40 psi. You can get away with a little less if you're going to carry a lot of weight on this rack. And you're ready to ride. If you have any trouble, like I said, you can email me, funbicycles@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to help you out. If you need a part, we'll send it out right away. But for the most part, these go together pretty easy. I hope you enjoyed that video and it was helpful to you.